Good evening to everyone who's coming in, particularly to those who will watch this on the replay because people haven't had a chance to log in yet. It's I Just Need a Minute. It's a special edition. We're here on the Faith Communities platforms. I'm Kristian A. Smith. I'm the lead pastor. So we're live on our Faith Community Facebook page, Faith Community YouTube page. And then for those who are joining from my personal YouTube page, thank you for being here. Robert, what's going on? What's going on? When you come in, please do drop a line, say hello, wave at me. Do it now in case I piss you off during the course of this live. Be kind to me now in case I say something that rubs you the wrong way as we move forward. Also, if you're courageous enough, hit the share button. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with everything that I say, but please hit the share button. For those who are with us right now, and say hello. Robert, the only person that spoke to me. Somebody else say hello, wave. Hey, Frida, what's going on? What's going on? So we're here to talk about this polarizing issue. I called it Concerning Transphobic Comedian Dave Chappelle. You take from that title what you want. Some people have labeled him transphobic, like seriously. All right. And that's one way to look at him. And then he actually refers to himself as a transphobic comedian, Dave Chappelle, in his special, but he's doing it in jest. I don't know where you stand on that. I'm not here to convince you one way or the other, but I do want to talk about it. Dewan Bibbs, Bruce Carroll, my wife Pamela, LaShawn Hoffman, great one. Melanie Ivy, it's good to see all of you. Again, if you'll hit the share button, I'm hoping to provide a perspective that meets everybody to a certain extent where they are. Let me tell you right now, if you're on either end of this spectrum of perspective on Dave Chappelle, like if you're on one end of the spectrum where he's the worst, he's transphobic, he's harmful, we should cancel him, nobody should consume his content, everybody should be angry. Like if you're on that end of the spectrum, I'm probably going to say something during the course of this time that you don't like. If you're on the other end, or it's like Dave is a genius, ain't nothing wrong with nothing he said, everybody ought to just get over it, I'm probably going to say something that you're not going to like during the course of this time together. Nonetheless, I'm going to say what I have to say. And I also want to clarify. Courtney, what's going on? I want to clarify that I do not speak on behalf of anyone in my ministry. I don't speak on behalf of the faith community. I speak on behalf of myself as the pastor of the faith community. But we're a community. So there is no way for one person to speak on behalf of everybody. I'm giving you my perspective and my take on this Dave Chappelle controversy. For those who aren't familiar with it, Dave Chappelle just released a stand-up special called The Closer, which closes out a series of Netflix specials that he's done. In all of those specials, he has made jokes concerning the LGBTQ plus community. Moving forward, I'll be using the term Q plus just to kind of condense that. And he has, in every show, made jokes about the Q plus community that has offended people within the community every single time. So people have been growing weary of some of those jokes. And then The Closer came out, I think it was last week, and the whole stand-up special, wove issues facing the Q plus community, particularly transgender individuals, throughout the actual content that he shared. So My take on this, and I'll be perfectly honest. My privilege just wanted this to go away. My privilege just wanted this to just straight up go away. But my position as lead pastor of the faith community, a ministry that is committed to, among other things, LGBTQ plus affirmation, I felt like it would be irresponsible of me not to say anything. The difficult part is, based on my personal stance, regardless of what I say, people are going to be upset. Somebody's going to feel like my words are not strong enough. So here's my take. I have been a fan of Dave Chappelle for a long time. Like, just been a fan of Dave Chappelle. I also can acknowledge that Dave Chappelle has made a number of inappropriate jokes. Particularly watching The Closer, there were moments during The Closer where I cringed. And I was like, no, why did he say that? When I watched it the first time, it was for sheer entertainment. And I had those moments where I cringed. And then I had those moments where had I been in the building, I would have applauded because of some of his cultural observations. And then, of course, I would have laughed. That's me. But there are a lot of people who heard a joke here or a joke there that was so offensive that you couldn't even go forward. And as a result, it's taking over, a lot of the news outlets. Everybody's talking about it. And what I'm seeing is there are people on opposite sides of this conversation who are really punching each other, but not talking about the same thing. If you're one of those people who's a fan of Dave Chappelle, you can be a fan and still acknowledge he is offensive to people. Like, you can be a fan of Dave Chappelle and recognize comedic genius and still also acknowledge that he can be ignorant in ways. Like, he made at least one ignorant statement that I know of in The Closer. And some people are like, he's not ignorant, he's a genius. Those two are not mutually exclusive. You can be a genius and be ignorant. You can know how to do something really well and be ignorant in another area. And for those who are watching who are like, no, he's not ignorant. If you don't know the difference between gender and sex, then you are not qualified to speak to whether or not he's ignorant, because he clearly used the term gender in his stand-up when he was really talking about sex. I'm not going to get into how those two are different right now. Ignorance means there's information that is available to you that you do not yet know. The difference between gender and sex is information that is available to you that some of you do not know. So I encourage you to go ahead and look it up. There's a difference. He was using gender and sex interchangeably, but there is a difference. If you don't know that, here's a great opportunity to educate yourself. So he made some ignorant statements. Some people will say it's a willful ignorance. It very well may be. It's still ignorant. As one who has followed Dave Chappelle for a long time, I hear the way he talks. I'm like, okay, he's doing some work. Like, he's not all the way there. He's got a long way to go. My challenge there with Dave is that to be ignorant in certain ways, I personally would not speak on the issues about which I'm ignorant. I would just fall back. But I can't speak for him. Like, that's just what I would do. And of course, I have a totally different role and assignment in my life than he does. So for people who are just saying, everybody just being sensitive, he didn't do anything wrong, you're dismissing the lived experience of other people. We don't get to determine for other people what should offend them. If a community of people say, we're offended by this, we feel like this could cause us danger, or it's already, triggered us in certain ways, then I want to say right now, I acknowledge that, and I'm not trying to talk you down from that. If you were offended, hell, I cringed, and I'm a fan. So I understand. Like, you were offended, and you have every right to that, and you have every right to make whatever decision you need to make as it pertains to consuming his content or how you want to support or not support him. And as someone who works to be an ally, like, I will sit with that. I will sit with you in that. At the same time, I can't inherit the same level of offense because I do not share in that lived experience. It's not possible. Because the first time I watched the show, I cringed, but I didn't realize the offense was going to go to that degree. And I was like, dang, what did I miss? Because that's not my lived experience. What did I miss? Like, what did he do? I know this was bad. Like, the first time I watched it, I didn't even hear him say, I'm Team Turf. I didn't even hear him say that. I had to go back. I was like, dang, did he say that? But because I'm not a trans person, statements like that can sometimes go over my head. So I think it's important to allow people to sit with whatever their response is and not try to tell them they shouldn't feel that way. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop telling people how they should feel about Dave's comments if his comments were offensive to them, because that's their human experience. That's their human experience. And they have every right to that. And yes, Dave made some great cultural observations, but I'll put it to you like this. I was having a conversation with my wife one time, actually a number of times, but we were having a conversation. It was an uncomfortable conversation. We were a little bit heated, and she made a statement that offended me. I was hurt. I was pricked. She didn't realize how hurt I was, and she kept talking. I don't know what she said after that, because the statement that offended me is where I stopped, and I didn't go any further. So if you watched this stand up and you heard something offensive and you couldn't go any further, I sympathize with you. Like, I understand that feeling of hearing something offensive and not being able to follow the rest of the conversation. So if you had to cut it off, if you had to, completely separate yourself from that, that is reasonable. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your experience. At the same time, I believe it's important that we allow other people to have their experiences as well. So if you're one of those people who was completely offended, you hate Dave Chappelle, you don't like any of his content, I'm not trying to change you from feeling that way. But, and I'm gonna speak for myself. I was able to compartmentalize the stuff that I thought was inappropriate and some of the genius observations that he made. Like, the fact that he made inappropriate statements does not change the fact that he made some genius observations. And let me state this right out the gate. I did not come into this space to do this tonight without having talked to people within the Q plus community. Like, the faith community is a opening and affirming ministry. So I had multiple conversations this week with people in the Q plus community to kind of get everybody's feedback. Oddly enough, very few people here were offended, but I'm not using those people to suggest that others shouldn't be offended. I'm just talking about the people that I have spoken to this week. Like, they took it as a joke, and that was it. It was a joke, rolled off their sleeve. Maybe they laughed, maybe they didn't, and they moved forward. So I'm not just coming out doing this without any type of context. I don't speak on behalf of gay people. I don't speak on behalf of trans people. I don't speak on behalf of the faith community. I speak on behalf of myself. And this is just my experience. I was able to compartmentalize when he made offensive comments and when he made brilliant comments. And both of those, I believe, coexist in the same special. If you can't compartmentalize, I understand. Some people can compartmentalize R. Kelly's actions as a person and his art. And they're like, yeah, what he did was wrong, but I'm still stepping in the name of love. I still believe I can fly, and I'm gonna play it at graduation. Like, people can compartmentalize that. I personally cannot compartmentalize with R. Kelly. I can't. I cannot consume R. Kelly content. I kind of feel uncomfortable when somebody else plays it. I don't stop them though, because that's their thing. I'm not gonna stop them, but just personally, I can't compartmentalize it. However, there are some people who cannot compartmentalize Bill Cosby. I can. Bill Cosby's impact on me, his art, the impact it's had on me, puts me in a position where I can compartmentalize his actions as an individual and the art that he's created. I can compartmentalize Dave Chappelle. If you want to know why I can, I really don't believe his intent is to harm people. I really don't believe that. And if there's some evolving that I need to do, my prayer is that you'll walk with me as I evolve. Because I'm not here saying that I'm right. I'm just here sharing with you my truth. What he did was offensive. It was inappropriate. And I know that because people have said it. If you tell me that you're offended, I believe you. And I'm sorry you're in that position. I cringe too. I can't cancel the positive things that he said, the real stuff that he said. And I think we all need to allow everybody to have their own human experience and their own interpretation of what he had to say. And also empathize with people who have a different experience from us. Because I think we out here having this conversation about how we need to cancel Dave Chappelle. And I think ultimately we're only canceling each other because he ain't losing no checks. The money is already cleared. He already got that money for his stand-ups. And he's going to keep touring and he's going to keep selling out. He's going to keep selling out every venue he goes to. And I think what's happening is we're missing each other because some people are saying he was offensive. He's ignorant. Other people are saying, no, he's not. He's a genius and he's funny. Could it be that sometimes he's offensive and ignorant and also funny and a genius? Do they have to, does one have to cancel out the other? And that's where I am on this. I am committed to my allyship and my advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community. That's not going to change because I believe everybody deserves human dignity. And if you were offended by what he said, I stand with you. I recognize it because I was like, ugh, I wish he wouldn't have said that. I cannot dictate to everybody that they respond to him the same way that you do. And if you're one of those people that really enjoyed it, you've watched it multiple times because you thought it was hilarious. Your enjoyment of the stand-up special does not negate the fact that some people were offended by it and that their offense is real. Especially, let me talk to my black people real quick, because the minute some white person talks about us and we get offended, we ready to shut everything down. I remember it was last year, during Kobe's untimely passing, and the news lady said Nakers. She slipped up and said Nakers. And black people went ballistic. I was like, dang, that sounds like a slip of the tongue. I mean, I'm a public speaker and I have slips of the tongue all the time. Y'all went ballistic. I wasn't really offended by what happened. I thought she just had a slip of the tongue. But you could not tell us that we shouldn't be offended. We were pissed when people told us we shouldn't be offended. Keep that same energy when people are offended by something that doesn't offend you. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. I'll say this and then I'll look at the comments and see if there's anything that I need to respond to in the comments. If you have questions, please ask them. Like I said, if you're on opposite ends of this spectrum, I probably said something tonight that's not going to sit well with you. You're not going to agree, and I understand that. That's the reality of life. We're all different. We all see things differently. We all believe differently in certain ways. If you're a person that feels like my allyship is insufficient in your eyes, my hope is that you'll continue on this journey with me and engage me in conversation and give me time to evolve, if that's what is in the stars for me. But if this is too much for you and you feel like I should have taken a stronger stance, and you feel like the only thing you can do to protect your peace is to cut me off, I also give you the space to do just that. Now I'm gonna see what what's going on in these comments. I'll start from the bottom. Callie says, I think it has to do with what people are willing to tolerate. So with this, I'd imagine that trans non-binary folks are seeing folks they know and love supporting Dave and wondering if they are going to tolerate that, do they actually affirm me? It's less to do with the celebrity they don't know and more about the real relationships in their life. Totally understand that. Totally understand that. And again, right there, if my statement made you feel unsafe around me, I'm just telling you my truth. And I'm not talking to you, Callie. I know we've had this conversation. Callie is one of the people I talked to this week. So I'm not arguing with Callie right now. But if you're a person that feels that way, like, and my stance is not strong enough for you and you don't feel safe around me, then I want you to be somewhere where you feel safe. That's my desire. Like, what I do in ministry, what I do as a pastor, I know that I'm not for everybody. I want everybody to feel safe in my presence. I want everybody to feel safe at TFC. But if you don't, I understand. There are faith leaders who will probably meet you right where you are. I can't change my truth though. And I'm able to compartmentalize. I'm not requiring you to, but I was able to. So again, you have to do with that what you will. You have to do with that what you will. Let's see. Does allyship require us as allies to be offended with our allies? Derek, that's a great question. And I don't think it's a easy answer to that question. Because I do believe there are some situations where, yeah, we should be offended with them. Like particularly when someone causes harm and violence. In this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm okay with being wrong right here. And in this case, the harm done was that he really hurt people's feelings. And I'm not minimizing that because that hurts. And I don't think anybody else should minimize the fact that people's feelings were hurt. As a matter of fact, for all the Dave Chappelle fans, he did a whole stand-up about how his feelings were hurt because his content was put on Netflix and he wasn't getting paid for it. He did a whole stand-up on that about his feelings being hurt. And we said, yeah, that's right. Like, but when somebody says he hurt their feelings, oh, y'all just being sensitive. So while I don't personally connect to the offense, I honor the offense that you have. And I don't want people to offend you in that way. So I can say I don't agree with what was stated. I can still appreciate the great stuff that he said. Susan, I appreciate those words, but I promise you, I promise you I'm not for everybody. I promise you I'm not. Derek also said it's interesting though, because people expect you to pick up their offense as if it is yours. This discussion could easily change if this slips into a social justice issue. Wouldn't it? Is this a social justice? Yeah, I believe this is a social justice issue. Social justice is not limited to any particular demographic, right? A lot of times we talk social justice, we think black people, but we're talking social, which is why at TFC, our keys, our pillars are tied to matters of social justice, anti-racism, women's equity, LGBTQ plus affirmation. Like those are all matters of social justice. Uh, Robert said this was a great opportunity to have continued dialogue about this and other socio-political matters. So thank you for addressing this. I appreciate that, Robert. I appreciate that. Um, Robert said, for me, and I speak only for me, the Bible is full of hella ignorant and offensive parts to me, and I can find beauty in other parts of that collection of books while still telling the offensive, ignorant, and horrific parts to have a seat. I totally agree. I totally agree. And I'll also say this, Robert, while you are able to do that, not everybody can. I shared earlier today that some people deconstruct and don't believe in God anymore. Some people deconstruct and draw closer to God. I encounter a lot of people who have deconstructed and threw it all away, don't want to have anything to do with it. And I honor that. I honor that because Christianity, the Bible, has been weaponized against them to the extent that they can't even engage it anymore. And I honor people's decisions to completely cut it off. But I don't feel that way. I'm able to compartmentalize. And part of that is privilege because theologically, I wasn't beat over the head a whole lot. Like, I grew up in the black church. I'm a black male. I'm cisgender. I'm heterosexual. So not a whole lot of stuff was thrown at me like it was at other people within my tradition. So everybody has their own experience. And no, we can't expect each other to all connect to the experience in the same way. We can all watch the same content and walk away with totally different conclusions. Happens every time I preach. I preach something and I meant something and somebody else got something out of it, something else out of it. It happens all the time. Callie said, when I'm offended and someone tells me I'm being too sensitive, I feel a bit like a nose being lectured by a fart. I'm not the problem. Understood. Absolutely. It's interesting. We often laugh at ignorance in comedy. I wonder if he uses his to create part of his comedy and play off of it. That's possible, Derek. I'm not here to defend Dave Chappelle. I'm not here to rationalize what he said, right? If it was offensive, it was offensive. And I knew some of that the first time I watched it. I found out in greater detail just how offensive it was after I saw the backlash. But if it was offensive, it was offensive. And I'm not sure saying that he played ignorant for the sake of the stand-up is actually a good defense of him, because I think that might actually make it worse. Like, that means you knew exactly what you were doing and you knew exactly how it was going to offend people and you did it anyway. Yeah. Elder Dewan Bibbs, we can't make our allies to feel uncomfortable as well. Life is so full of nuance, y'all. I talk about this all the time, and this has brought it to light more than anything I've encountered in ministry up to this point. Like, so much nuance here. Like, I feel like Dave is a paradox, which is why he polarizes the culture so much. Because it's like, wait a minute, are you bashing them or are you advocating for them? Because I can't really tell. Because when you say something that sounds like advocacy, well, you just offset it with something that was like crude and rude. So I don't really know. It's a paradox. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I know I can say that parts of it I agree with and parts of it I disagree with. And I can hold those two in tension. And if you can't, I understand. And I'm not trying to force you to. But don't try to force me to abandon what I know he said was true. Because he said some other things that I totally disagree with. Is it fair to demand a friend, ally, loved one to feel how we feel and the way we think they should feel, or how to love us that may lead to a pretty one-sided relationship? Frida, that's a great question. Again, it's one of those case-by-case basis. Like, for me personally, if it's the case-by-case basis, because I'm gonna look at it differently. Like, if somebody hurts the feelings of my loved one versus violating them in some way, like I'm going to respond to those two differently. So there is no one size fits all. I think these are conversations that we need to have with the loved ones in our lives. Like, if there's somebody that you care about who feels differently than you about this, I think you should have a conversation with that person. And when somebody tells us they're offended, the worst thing you can do is say, well, you shouldn't be. Say, can you tell me more about that? I want to learn about it. Not like, well, are you just too sensitive? Don't do that. Just like, tell me more. I want to learn about it. I don't think it's fair. Okay, Pamela said, I don't think it's fair if that experience isn't a live one for us. All we can do is empathize. I think demanding the same feelings is incredibly one-sided. Well, Pamela answered it. I didn't even need to answer it. Robert said Jesus was offensive to a lot of people. He was the Messiah. Elder Dewan said, I definitely think he did it on purpose. He may have. I don't know for certain. Courtney said he feels like the ending was horrible. Yeah. The ending was interesting to me because it was like, how so for those who watched it, Daphne is the person in the ending that we're referring to, Dave's trans friend. And I'm not using Daphne as some validation of him not being transphobic, because I know it's a whole lot of racist people that got a black friend. So I'm not even going there. I just wonder, like, what is that relationship between Daphne and her child? Like, is Daphne the child's mother, father, parent, caretaker? I don't know. Like, one of the interesting things about this conversation, because like I said, I had a lot of conversations with people this week within TFC, and one of the people I spoke with is like Gen X. They're Gen X gay, and Gen X gays are different than like young millennial and Gen Z gay. Like, and like Dave said that in the special, but I saw it in real time this week as I was having conversations, because like the Gen X Q plus people were like giving me a lot of the same feedback, and then the younger Q plus people were giving me similar feedback to each other. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So like my older Q plus people, one of them in particular was like, yeah, I truly advocate for everybody in the alphabet community. And I'm using their words. I advocate for everybody. Everybody has the right to be who they are. Everybody has the right to human dignity. I am also one of those old gays who, as we have evolved into this community that we've become, I've thought to myself, ooh, this show did get complicated. That's what they said to me, right? And it's just an acknowledgement of like, yo, this is complicating. We're completely shifting paradigms on how we see the world. Like, we're changing our paradigm for gender. That takes time. That takes time. It takes effort. And it takes effort that not everybody is invested in. I'm invested in it. I'm working. If I'm not there yet, keep working with me. Keep walking with me. All right. Thank y'all. I appreciate you all's presence here. I appreciate your commentary. I appreciate your questions. Thank you for journeying with me. Thank you for walking alongside of me. Thank you for trusting me. For those of you that do, thank you for trusting me to be a part of your faith journey and provide whatever guidance, leadership, friendship I can along this way. I greatly appreciate it. Let's make sure we honor what we feel within ourselves and honor what other people feel within themselves too. I believe that Dave Chappelle is a genius. I also believe a lot of the stuff he said was very inappropriate. And both of those things can exist at the same time. I love y'all. Nothing you can do about it. Let's keep going. I'll see y'all soon. Peace out.